guys see this? Over the weekend, President-elect Trump launched a new line of $200 perfumes and colognes. It's perfect if you want to smell like a Big Mac that's been sitting in a tanning bed and then thrown in the back of a Cybertruck. It's,
yes. And, of course, if Joe Biden had a cologne, what exactly would that smelled like? Formaldehyde, I think. Wouldn't that be formaldehyde? I think that might be appropriate. Joe Biden and dust. Maybe things like that. The Joe Biden cologne, don't even want to talk about that. Not to mention Dr. Jill Biden making goo-goo eyes at President Trump in Gay Paris. All of that. Well, happy Tuesday to you and welcome back. We are at 888-630-9625. There's a lot to talk about today, perhaps a lot that you would like to talk about as well. We've got two big Democrat Party stories here. The first is a young Ivy League Democrat murdering a CEO in New York City and being arrested in Altoona, which is one of the great names of any town in America. Altoona, Pennsylvania, because he went to a McDonald's, Mickey D's, and apparently one of the employees there saw the guy and said, "Hey, that looks like the guy from the pictures in New York that shot and killed the CEO." So the McDonald's employee working for a big corporation, this guy, he despised big corporations and capitalism and the healthcare industry and the insurance industry, and apparently a little early yet, but why he murdered the CEO in New York City. Remarkable stuff. And the Democrats, they're all on the side of the murderer. They love the murderer. They want to date the murderer. They really do. They want to bring him home for Christmas because they love murder. They're not even sure exactly why. They know that the Democrat Party, the party, and it's party first, party last, party all the time. And the party told them that they should hate the American healthcare industry because it's the best in the history of the world. And we solve the world's problems, medically speaking, and certainly in terms of pharmaceuticals and so on. And the Democrats, they have told everyone that they have to hate the healthcare industry and hate the insurance industry. They spread hate, like faster than they spread monkeypox. Do you think faster than monkeypox, or maybe about the same rate? But the Democrat Party, while they're spreading monkeypox, they're spreading hatred. And they teach hatred of all kinds of things, of the police, of good, normal people, of the American flag, of our country, of our history, of white people, of men, of straight people, toxic masculinity, all this stuff. And they hate the healthcare industry, and they hate the insurance industry, and they hate CEOs who make $10 million a year because they're petty and small-minded and resentful and not ambitious, just bitter and angry that they're not getting the job done. Know what I'm talking about? So remarkable stuff. The Democrat Party, they teach us that. And I'll tell you, the moment this, I don't want to throng my own rind over here, but the fact is, when this story broke, what did I say? What did I say, Michael? I said, and they're like, "Oh, people are hype. It's a professional hitman." I said, "No, it's not a professional hitman. It's a young guy who is angry, who's been taught to hate by the Democrat Party." This is what I said when the story broke. I said, "This is not a professional hitman by any stretch. A professional hitman doesn't do this and doesn't do that, and his gun doesn't jam and he doesn't shoot you from 15 feet away, and yada, yada. And he doesn't go to the Starbucks beforehand." And even before we learned that, I was saying he's not a professional hitman. He's an angry leftist, I said, who has been taught to hate the health insurance industry, the American health care industry, and CEOs. And I don't want to, take too much credit for anything, but it's amazing how frequently I'm right. And others were yelling, "Oh, he's a professional hitman. He is brought in from Sicily. He's Frankie Five Angel's brother, and he's tougher than Frankie Five Angels." No, he was an Ivy League educated private school, Maryland, expletive deleted, whose family looks like he comes from a great family. Honestly does. Looks like he comes from a wonderful family. And he's got a cousin who's a member of the State House, an elected member of the state delegate in the state of Maryland, and he's a Republican. His cousin is a Republican, Nino. And it's all these great Italian names. I got to say, Luigi Mangione, that's great. I wonder if he's related to Chuck Mangione, who used to be a big, he's probably still out there, jazz musician and composer who had some really big hit songs. Chuck Mangione played the flugelhorn and other brass instruments, I think. But a big talent many years ago, Chuck Mangione from New York. But never mind that. How many Mangiones can there be scattered around the country, after all? But this is a fascinating story, and it reminded me, nobody remembers this either, of an old story from Chicago. I grew up in Chicago. But an old story out of Chicago became an Alfred Hitchcock movie about a couple of rich, entitled, overeducated 20-somethings in Chicago that murdered a teenage boy, and their names were Leopold and Loeb. Leopold and Loeb became famous, notorious murderers in the United States. America was the biggest story of the decade, and they made the Alfred Hitchcock movie and other movies based on the Leopold and Loeb murders. And they thought they were so smart that they could murder a teenage boy and get away with it because they'd outsmart everybody else. And I suspect that this private school, Maryland, country club, Ivy League, expletive deleted, Luigi, I'm guessing that he thought that he could outsmart everybody and they wouldn't catch him. And it didn't work out for him. But the Democrats, you know, they're having in New York City, where was it? Washington Square Park. They're having a murderer lookalike contest the other day. Over the weekend, they had a murderer, and we didn't know it was Luigi Mangione. We just knew that it was this guy in the coat with the hoodie, and but hoodies aren't criminal looking ever, right? And that one of the lies that Democrats tell is that people that go around with masks and hoods are no more sinister or evil than Mother Teresa. And this is what the left would have you believe. But they lie about everything. So here comes Luigi Mangione, an Ivy League educated private school candy rump. I don't want to be coarse this early in the morning. But he's a rich kid. His family owns literally country clubs with golf courses and things. And that's no slam on his family. His family's great. His family's fine. They own some kind of a nursing home or care facility for older people as well. And they've been a very successful family. Again, a state delegate in Maryland and all this good stuff. But they got one bad apple over here, Luigi. And Luigi, I'm guessing, thought that he could outsmart everybody. He thought that he's the new Leopold and Loeb, and he thought that he could get away with it. The Alfred Hitchcock movie was called Rope, I believe, and a lot of fun. And he changed some of the central facts, but based on Leopold and Loeb. And this guy, I think he's gotten away with everything all his life. And he just was passed along to the next level, from his private high school with private tutors to the Ivy League, where he got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania, which is apparently an Ivy League school of some kind. I kid. It's, of course it is. And then he's like living the life of Riley, rich kid. You see him with his Bali T-shirt on and lots of pictures. He's traveling the world, going to exotic locations in his 20s, and life is good for Luigi. And then he decided that he was so angry, and the news media, they're trying to make excuses for him. Oh, he had surgery. And, yeah, okay, it comes from one of the wealthiest families, and yeah, he had surgery. And he's angry about and they're trying to justify, and they haven't even heard him. He's got a 3-page manifesto that the police have now. I wonder if they'll ever release it. Like we had the transgender school killer in Tennessee, and they wouldn't release the manifesto forever and ever. So let's see. We're getting more information out of this case than most, to be sure. But this is a fascinating case. And again, the Democrats, and we got this crazy, awful, fake news reporter. Which one, Chris? That's true. There are a lot of them. We got this crazy left-wing protester, journalist, who might as well be a protester. And she is out there celebrating the murder of the CEO, because she's what they call a liberal. Liberals aren't liberal at all, but Taylor Lorenz is out there, and she foolishly, the idiot that she is, did an interview with Piers Morgan yesterday, who's English, and he asked her some questions about her love of murder, her love of assassination. And you got to keep in mind the Democrat Party, they produced Bernie Sanders volunteer, James Hodgkinson, who shot and nearly killed Congressman Steve Scalise, was there to assassinate an entire baseball team of Republican members of Congress in Alexandria, Virginia, when it was a suicide attack, too, by Bernie Sanders volunteer. These people have perpetrated, the left, Democrats, mainstream Democrats, perpetrated suicide attacks against the police in New York City, officers Ramos and Liu, followed by suicide, an attack on the U.S. Capitol Police, where Officer William Evans, Billy Evans, was murdered by a lunatic that came and attacked him and ran him over and killed him and nearly killed a second U.S. Capitol Police officer, then jumped out of his car and attacked the police with a giant knife, and he was gunned down. It was clearly a suicide attack. The Democrats are self-immolating across the country. We've had at least 6 Democrats self-immolate in the last 2 years in the United States of America because they feel very strongly about things like supporting Hamas. More suicide attacks against the police in Dallas at a Black Lives Matter rally. Suicide attack, mass murder of police in Dallas and in Baton Rouge. And now we got this guy. And he's part of the trend that the Democrat Party has created, the movement, which is violent, murderous, suicidal, and driven by hatred. And the Democrats, make no mistake, the Democrats and the Congressman Steve Scalise was targeted by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And James Hodgkinson of the Bernie Sanders campaign, he was obsessed online with the Southern Poverty Law Center. And he went and he shot Congressman Steve Scalise and nearly killed him and tried to murder Hall baseball field again in a suicide attack. And the Democrats have made this normal. And the news media doesn't talk about it as I'm describing it here because they don't tell the truth. And I do. And I like the truth, as awful and horrible as it is, as stinky as it is. Like Taylor Lorenz. She's an awful, horrible person. And I've got several sound bites of her talking to Piers Morgan yesterday. She's like, oh, yeah, we love murder. We love assassination of CEOs because we're bitter, small, resentful people. And we're not good at anything except hatred and mayhem and violence and murder. So we've got that going. And the Democrats, again, they're having a murderer look-alike contest in a park in New York City over the weekend where young men are showing up and saying, hey, don't I look like the murderer? And they're cheering and clapping and high-fiving, and the girls want to have sex with the guy who looks most like the murderer because Democrats are sick in the head, and the Democrat Party teaches this everywhere you go. And then, of course, out of New York yesterday, we had another giant story. Daniel Penny found not guilty in the death of a crazy person on the subway in New York, a tragic and unfortunate situation. Turns out that the man who died while being a psychopath on New York City's subway train, he was the usual, abandoned by his father. His mother was murdered when he was a teenager by her boyfriend. He was schizophrenic and mental all over the place and had drug problems and had been arrested 42 times and multiple psycho episodes on the subway. And the Democrats just say, well, let's let him go again. What could go wrong? And the Democrats, they're on the side of the mentally ill psychopath who died on the subway train instead of the ex-Marine who was trying to protect the people aboard the train because, it's the nature of United States Marine. And the Democrat Party is on the wrong side of both of these gigantic stories. They're anti-Daniel Penny, right, and pro-psycho. Hey, there's Chuck Mangione. There he is. So you got the Mangione family all over the place here. Chuck Mangione. And it was a big song. This is a big, big song. He plays the horn. That was great. So, yeah, I've got great stuff for you on these big, big stories today. And also President Trump and his cabinet and the news media having a psychotic meltdown. They might go, I don't know, half these media people might go after a CEO today. They do it from their anchor chairs. Amazing. And we're at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Now, on the internet, Democrats are attacking the McDonald's employee that called the police, calling him a rat and a snitch. McDonald's has a rat problem and a snitch problem because it was a McDonald's employee that called the police and said, hey, that murderer, that assassin is here. And the Democrats are expressing their support for the murderer because the problem is not our guns, it's your sons. Cage your children. Let's go to the telephones, Mike. Also, there's a fun meme going around of President Trump in the McDonald's drive-thru window. Remember, he did that, made fries, and was wearing the McDonald's apron and stuff. And they got a photograph of Trump in the drive-thru window, and they say, oh, Trump rats out poor innocent Ivy League student who's a murderer because they have a lot of mental illness. It's called the Democrat Party. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Patty calling from Montclair, Virginia. Patty, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Chris, my fellow Sagittarius, you're the 12th, I'm the 15th. Happy birthday.
I thank you very kindly.
You're very welcome. Probably sounds weird, but anyway, I thought about it. One of the greatest prejudices from the get-go are pretty attractive people against people who are not so attractive. I used to teach elementary school. The cute little kids are picked, and it goes on throughout life. My point in saying that now is this guy is drop dead gorgeous. I'm hearing it from everybody. I kind of agree. And one smitten woman on that jury, and he walks.
Huh. Wow. That's interesting because we just had the Daniel Penny jury yesterday and on Friday, separate. I'm not saying he's Clark Gable, but you make a very interesting point, Patty. And it's true. The Democrats, they're all over the internet talking about how they want to date him.
Yep. Yes, they are.
And they had a lookalike contest, as I mentioned.
I heard you say it. I didn't know that before you. But then I learned so much from you.
And they really want him. I got to tell you, though, they were talking about how hot he was before we saw an inch of skin. They saw a guy in a hood with a pistol and a silencer shoot a man on a sidewalk, and Democrats were all over the internet talking about how hot he was. And you couldn't tell what planet he was from, what continent he was from, what race he was. You literally could not tell anything. You saw the coat and the gun, and Democrats were all over him. Now, I don't want to suggest that or imply that the Democrat Party loves murder, so I'll just say it right out. The Democrat Party loves murder, and they love murderers. I know this because so many of them have said it out loud so many times that it's impossible to not notice. And there was a peculiar part of the exchange with the awful, horrible person and fake journalist Taylor Lorenz, talking to Piers Morgan, who's English. But before I get to that, I want to, because she said it's joy. She feels joy over the murder of a 50-year-old father of two and husband who had worked his whole life and become a CEO at a healthcare company, and all that's fine with the Democrats, and then they decide they want to murder him. Because let's go. Because in August we put together a little bit of it was Newsmax that put together a bit of a montage of the news media talking about the joy in the Kamala Harris campaign and Tim Walz. Whatever happened to Tim Walz? Did you know that Tim Walz was a friend of the CEO that was murdered in New York City by Luigi. But here's a little bit of montage that Newsmax put together.
And yesterday, what you saw is joy.
And it was the power of joy.
You know what I love more than anything? The joy. You can't underestimate the power of joy in this campaign. Don't underestimate the joy factor of this. They're going to bring the joy.
People were also just feeling relieved and telling me about how happy they were to see some joy back in the party.
And joy, so much joy.
Was this joy, this
relief.
positivity? You have this happy, joyful, positive ticket.
The most remarkable demonstration.
It's a joy. All right, enough joy. I've got enough joy. There's Nancy Pelosi, and they've got a great deal of joy because there's so much joy in the Harris campaign. That was all a lie, of course. Every one of them was lying. Now, this morning I was watching the news, the Fox News channel, and there was a reporter, Alexis McAdams, and she was on the television. She's talking about the murder of the healthcare CEO in New York City, and guess what word came up?
So I think it's really disturbing to people across the country as they tune in and hear, people excited and saying there's joy from this. I think it's really concerning.
It's really concerning. Isn't that amazing? But then something else happened. And I'm going to hit pause for a second. I'm going to go to a quick commercial break here, okay? And now we have returned. Some technical difficulties. So complex, this business. Now, where was I? I was about to go to Taylor Lorenz because they feel such glee, such joy. And, the Harris campaign, they were all about joy. And then we've got on Alexis McAdams, the Fox News channel, talking about how Democrats on the internet, are responding to the murder of a healthcare company CEO and then the capture of the murderer who they want to date.
So I think it's really disturbing to people across the country as they tune in and hear, people excited and saying there's joy from this.
There's joy. There's joy from this. They're getting joy from this. Now let's go to Taylor Lorenz, who is apparently a news reporter, Washington Post, New York Times, sat down with, and she's said a lot of crazy stuff because she's a typical lefty, a typical Democrat, sat down with the British man, Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan wanted to talk to her about the murder of the CEO, Brian Thompson, and just amazing stuff, this little back and forth. You'll never guess what word came up again when it comes to Taylor Lorenz, Washington Post, New York Times journalist, talking to Piers Morgan.
Why would you be in such a celebratory mood about the execution of another human being? Aren't you supposed to be on the caring, sharing left where, you believe in the sanctity of life?
I do believe in the sanctity of life, and I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like...
Seriously?
I mean...
Joy in a man's execution?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy.
Certainly not empathy. Joy, and she said, she used the word, joy is the word that she used. I feel joy, and he was a little bit shocked, and he said, joy, I'm sorry, you feel joy? And then she tried to revise and extend her remarks just a little bit. But, sorry, cat's out of the bag. A 50-year-old man, father of two, a husband, a CEO, is murdered in cold blood, and she is a typical run-of-the-mill Democrat and journalist, feels joy. That's what she revealed. It went on from there.
How can this make you joyful? This guy's a husband, he's a father, and he's being gunned down in the middle of Manhattan. Why does that make you joyful?
Of Americans that he murdered.
I'm sorry. What about the Americans that he's murdered? Is that what she said, Michael? What about the Americans that he has murdered? Brian Thompson, she just accused him of murder. The family should sue her for $168 million. How much was it? $148 million, I think, Rudy Giuliani. They should sue her. The family should sue her and whoever she works for now for the same amount that Rudy Giuliani was sued for. Just because. But Brian Thompson, she feels joy because the Democrat Party is the left. They're not liberals. They're the left. And nobody murders like the left, Taylor Lorenz.
Should they all be killed, these healthcare executives? Would that make you even more joyful?
No, that would not.
Well, why not?
And,
why are you laughing?
I think because it wouldn't fix the system.
You seem to find the whole thing hilarious.
I find your question funny.
A bloke's been murdered in the street. I don't find it funny at all.
I don't find it funny that tens of thousands of Americans die every year and because they are denied life-saving health care from people like the CEO.
Tens of thousands of people die every year because they're denied health care by people like the CEO. Now, she's the one that posted the photograph in the name of a woman who's the CEO of another healthcare company. Hours after the murder of Brian Thompson, she was inciting the murder of another specific CEO, a woman this time. And these people, they're the left. They're barbarians. They're savages. They love all of the mayhem and the lunacy. Now, isn't that amazing? Now, let me go back to Alexis. I keep calling her Rachel. It's Alexis McAdams and Alexis McAdams, Fox News. Where are we going? Number six, because Alexis McAdams on the Fox News channel, who's been covering this story, was talking about the joy that the Democrat Party has achieved by way of the murder of a 50-year-old man who did not murder thousands of people, did not murder tens of thousands of people, is not responsible for the deaths of thousands. As a CEO of a healthcare company, undoubtedly responsible for saving many thousands of lives. But when it comes to the left, the truth doesn't matter as long as people are getting murdered. Keeping in mind that nobody murders like the left. The Soviet Union murdered, 30 million of their own people, and the Chinese communists have murdered at least 50 million of their own people, probably 75 million of their own people, according to more recent research on all of that. And, of course, you got your Pol Pots and your they wear Che Guevara T-shirts. He murdered thousands, literally murdered thousands, firing squads and all that good stuff. But Alexis McAdams.
I think the motive here is the thing that a lot of people across the country are interested in, too. Did this have to deal with, the United Healthcare CEO specifically, or was this just about the entire healthcare system? He had a bunch of posts on his social media talking about back pain and how his, claims weren't covered.
The left loves murder. They love murder in Cuba and in North Korea and in Cambodia and in China and in the Soviet Union. They love murder. They teach murder. They teach hatred and hostility. And the left is here. I've been saying this for a long time. The Democrat Party is not liberal anymore. The Democrat Party is left. Now, again, I mentioned that there was a look-alike contest at Park in New York City where everybody was having a good time, and Alexis McAdams went down there to cover that.
I've never seen or heard of anything like it. I saw, over the weekend I was working in Washington Square Park in New York City. They had a look-alike contest, having people come and dress up like the gunman, and people are going and thinking it's funny, wearing deny, defend, and oppose on their T-shirts. Whatever somebody's job is or whatever happened, you don't have the right to go out and kill somebody and take, vigilante justice into your hands.
Deny, defend, and depose, which he wrote on the shell casings, on the bullets that he then fired at the CEO, Brian Thompson, and he murdered him. And those words echo a book by a left-wing professor, which was an attack on the health insurance industry and the healthcare industry in the United States of America, because the left demands total state control of everything, right? Because that's who they are. And the look-alike contest is particularly sick and demented and expected, honestly. And again, what do they feel? What do they? What's their sense? I want to play it again. Let's play number 8 again, because what is it that the left feels when they see a man murdered, a father of 2, a husband, a CEO, walking down the sidewalk in New York City?
So I think it's really disturbing to people across the country as they tune in and hear, people excited and saying there's joy from this. I think it's really concerning, and people also posting different CEOs information then, like who's next.
Man, oh man. The joy. All right, let's go back to a phone call, and I have more to get to on that, and then also Daniel Penny coming up as well. Remarkable stuff. The news media, they went and they found a roommate, an old roommate of Luigi, and they brought him on and treated him like, oh, isn't he wonderful? Tell us great things about Luigi, because they want to love the murderer. In order to love the murderer, you have to love the murder, of course, and that's okay with the Democrats. But let's go to a telephone call. Let's go to Anonymous. Let's go to Anonymous calling from Leesburg, Virginia. Anonymous, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hello, Chris. I'm a longtime listener, and I normally would have given you my name, and I'm ashamed that I can't do that. But because of the nature of this subject, I have to remain anonymous.
Okay.
My wife, who's a medical doctor with over 35 years of experience, works in the insurance adjudication side of the house for all these kinds of medical procedures. And in their company, they've already been told to take down anything at all to reference of who they are, because there are death threats. These are real. I've seen them on myself on some of the social medias, and it's beyond pale of what's going on. So let's talk about some of the things. There's a comment about anesthesiology not being approved. You know why it's not approved? Because some of the procedures people want are not even approved. She has a fiduciary responsibility both to the insurance company and to Medicaid, Medicare, that say you can't do certain things. And if you do, guess what? She's liable. So she has to follow the procedure. I've heard her in these conversations, because she does a lot of her work from the online, to go into different doctors because of case X, case Y, and case Z. And it's now become a dangerous situation. You can't have somebody wanting to have a surgery that is unapproved and pay for it willy-nilly. Money doesn't come out of nowhere. It's got to be adjudicated correctly.
Now, let me pause you for just a sec, because one of the stories that popped immediately after the murder of Brian Thompson was, oh, yeah, the insurance companies aren't paying for anesthesia, and the anesthesiologist will stop giving anesthetic halfway through a surgery, right? And they're saying halfway through a surgery, which sounds completely insane, and I made fun of that the other day when we were hearing about this, and it sounds like another left-wing talking point. But you're saying that there are that the industry has people going into surgeries that are not approved by the insurance companies, and that there's this juggling act going on because people want surgeries that are unapproved, and it's not being paid for because it's not approved by the insurance company, but the surgeries are being done anyway?
Exactly. Nobody's being stopped from doing the thing. It has to come down to the bottom line of doing it. Or the paperwork that was submitted for the procedure was incorrect. She will tell the person on the other side she would love to, but she can't because of the legalities of approving something that goes on. So it's a lot more complicated than anybody can ever say. But nobody's stopped. Most of these cases, insurance-wise, the procedure's already been done, and then it's after the fact of that's going on of settling up the bill.
Right. Okay. So it's not that the anesthesia is being denied, just paying for it.